What happens after an author types the end? Before it finds its way onto bookshelves and into readers' hands, every novel has a long and winding road to publication. To navigate that path, every author will need that one person who's both a fierce advocate and a trusted guide through the rejection-filled streets of the publishing world. That one person will champion their work, move it to the top of the editor's stack, and then fight for all it's worth. Nick Petrie found the right champion. So too did Don Bentley and Samantha Downing. She just happens to be the next guest on the Crew Reviews.
Hi, I'm Barbara Poelle, and you should be watching the Crew Reviews.
So let's get right into it then, boys. Let's raise a glass. We got Barbara Poelle in the house.
Barbara Poelle.
Awesome. What?
Hello.
Let's take a sip.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now
We are going to start at the beginning because it's the beginning. So let's start at the beginning. Barbara Poelle, how did you end up as a literary agent?
Oh, it's a long and storied tale. I have a secret history as a film and television actress in Los Angeles.
Nice.
And when it got incredibly difficult living on Diet Coke to stay with a BMI of like 2%, I was like, it's not working for me. And my husband, one night in the bathroom, we were brushing our teeth, and he said, "You would make a great literary agent." And I said, "What's that?" And he said, "It's like a film agent, but for books." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So I started researching it, and sure enough, to be a literary agent, all you have to do is like to read and like to demand people share your opinion. And I'm great at that. So my favorite things are reading and sassing. So that's how I make a living now.
And you do very well with that, believe us, everybody.
Thank you. I've been very lucky. Lots of good guys and girls in my stable. Lots.
Yeah, you sure do.
Does your business card say reading and sassing?
They do. Yeah. We'll sass for food, actually, is what they say.
Okay, guys, that's another t-shirt idea right there. All right. That's running into our ball of tricks. Well, then, okay. So now you're a literary agent. So what's been your best source for discovering new talent or authors? Slush,
say it with me, slush.
Slush.
I think my number one source of new talent is a strong query letter in first 10 pages. I am in that slush almost every day. The second would be conferences like Thriller Fest, and then the third would be client referrals.
Ah, okay. So has any particular author said, "Barbara, you really got to read this. This is amazing." And it does happen. And sometimes, more often than not, it's I see why you like this person, or this is your critique partner, and I see it. It's not for me. And oftentimes I can refer to someone else in my agency, or even a colleague at a different agency if that's happening. But if I get, like, if Jamie Frevaletti taps me on the shoulder and it's like, "You need to read this," I'm going to kick it to the top of the list to read, Sure. No, that makes total sense. Well, do you have a favorite anecdote or story about how you came to represent any particular client?
Oh, I have many.
Let's pick one.
They can go from the quite benign yet Machiavellian to when I signed my client Robert Lewis. I got him in the slush. I read it. I requested the manuscript, and it was so good. And this is back in the day when we didn't really have cell phones. And so there was a home phone listed. So I called the home phone on purpose, not the cell phone, in order to see if there was a partner that answered the phone. And sure enough, there was. And when the partner answered the phone and I asked for Robert, they said, "Oh, he's not home right now." And I said, "Oh, who am I speaking to?" And she said, "Well, this is his wife." And I said, "This is Barbara Poelle from the Irene Goodman Agency, and I'm calling to offer your husband representation because I think he's a genius, and you've probably been telling him this all along." So I got her all pumped up and excited. So she did my work for me. I didn't have any competition. I just snapped it up.
Half the price, too.
Right? And there's also been really great stories of writers having some chutzpah, like Renee Adia. We were at the Writers Digest conference, also a fantastic conference. And I had done a panel, and she came up to me afterwards. And she said, "Oh, and I'm also really cool with if you want to hand me your actual pages at something. I know a lot of other agents aren't. But if you come up to me and say, 'Here's my 10 pages in query and hard copy,' I will take them. I like that."
Oh, sure.
So she came up, handed me the pages, and said, I know you probably have a lot to do, but you never, if you never, what was our exact phrasing? It was something about the effect of, you hear no only if you don't ask, something like that.
Yeah.
She said, I would love to take you out for a cup of coffee and talk about the industry. And she just had such this like it factor to her. I laughed right in her face because that's who I am. And then I said, actually, my husband and child are in the lobby. I only had one child point. I said, my husband and child are in the lobby and I'm having lunch with them. Otherwise, I loved this. I loved your invitation. I would say yes. So I took the pages. Flash forward maybe 2 days later. I came home that night, threw them on the desk in the entryway. 2 days later, I come home from work and my husband's got the pages and he's like, have you looked at this? And I said, not yet. And he's like, this. So now my husband likes to take credit for Renee, and I like to give Renee credit for having, just the desire and the chutzpah to walk up and say, I want to talk to you more about the industry. Not can I pitch my book, can I do it, but talk to me about the industry. So I have tons of, each client I've signed has their own journey story, and then our facilitation of their career takes on its own journey. It's pretty fantastic. I could sit here for 52 stories of clients and how I found them and how each of them are part of a conversation that I want to be holding up a microphone to. So if I sign a historical romance novel, it's because I want to hand the microphone to that person who's had a day and they want to sit in a bathtub and escape for a little bit. If I'm signing, a social justice memoir, I want to hand the microphone to that person to create the megaphone effect on that. Every single book I sign, every client I sign, I just want to hand the microphone to be a part of the facilitation of that conversation.
Yeah.
Like a number one.
You mentioned your husband, and as writers, I know we talk to our wives a lot about read this and everything. Is your husband really active in reading the stuff that you get submitted? Or was that just kind of
before we had kids, I would have said yes, but then he was the guy. He was the point guy for raising the kids. So I've had a just fantastic conglomerate of great assistants over the years. So great second readers, great people to bounce my ideas off of, bounce the idea of comp titles and where we're sitting. But really, it always comes down to my eyeballs. I have to be reading it, and I have to feel that what is it? The Carmen Barenina, the Orff one, where you just the music is building and building, and you think you absolutely can't take anymore. And so I've sent emails at 3 a.m. on a Sunday to be like, when can we talk on Monday to people? Because it's like, I can't help but do it.
Yeah. Ooh, capture that lightning.
Serious.
Yeah.
I know as a reader, when I find a great book or a great author, it's like this secret treasure that I'm holding, and I'm excited about it even as a reader. So I know that has to be like exponentially more when you're an author, or when you're an agent and you find an author or a manuscript. So my question though is, how much of that excitement and enthusiasm do you bring to the process? Do you have to temper it and approach it a certain way, or can you just be as effusive as you would be as a reader?
I have 2 speeds. They are 124 miles per hour and asleep. So everything that I am doing at that level is that. So, sometimes I'll call Mark Tavani at Putnam and be like, Mark, check your inbox. You're welcome. Slam. And that's how I just pitched a book like that. And that's just who I am. And I have been able to not cry wolf enough. Like I actually have a wolf. And so it has worked out very well for me.
That's awesome.
Barbara has a wolf.
Hungry as a wolf.
A quick Google search, and any aspiring author can find dozens and dozens and dozens of query letter go-bys.
Okay.
Some are good, some are bad, some are okay. But how can an aspiring author grab your attention? Like what trick can they do, or what can they do to get in your head?
Yeah, sure. So I talk about this all the time. You don't need to be pithy or cute. You don't need to do a first-person query from your character. I think Sophie Littlefield has an example, maybe still on sophielittlefield.com, of her query letter. And to me, it really speaks to the essence of the 3 things that I find important in a query letter. And I say this all the time. It's the hook, the book, and the cook. So the hook is going to be your log line, right? Great white shark terrorizes small New England town over 4th of July weekend.
Yeah.
Love it.
Then you're going to get the word count in there, maybe some comp titles. Then you're going to do the book section, 4 or 5 lines of premise, not plot. 4 or 5 lines of premise, not plot. And then your final section is going to be the cook, you. And I want to know why you, why this book, why now? And it can be, I mean, just like I just signed Tim Hendricks, who did 2 tours in Afghanistan and was, military intelligence. And that was his background on writing this story. And then I signed someone else that said, I wrote this longhand while, watching my daughter's softball tournaments on weekends on a yellow legal pad. And that's, I mean, both of those stories are just as fascinating to me as far as the artist in the process.
Okay.
There it is, folks.
Well, given the volume of unsolicited queries that most agents receive, is there anything that a writer should take away from the personalized note on a rejection of the manuscript as compared to, say, just a standard form letter? Is there something that you can kind of find, find within there?
For sure. If you're getting anything that speaks to a specific aspect of your manuscript, that's something that it was read, it was considered, it was thoughtfully considered. It might even have been a maybe. When you're getting a form letter. And also, if an agent says, I'd like to see what you write next, or should you consider revising this, all that, save that. And on your next book, use that same thread to pitch what you wrote. Because a lot of times people say, you said to send me my next book. It's been, 18 months. Yeah, so when I see the thread, I'm like, oh, this is the lady that had the one with the guy, and so it's for me a really nice reminder of what I liked around the first time around.
Okay. So you might maybe the timing wasn't there, or maybe it was just the storyline wasn't quite what you were looking for, but you liked you liked what you were kind of reading.
Or it could be what's going on with my list right now. Like I really, really have some top players in a couple of big genres. And if that's what I'm working with, you got to be a click above that to even, I mean, I'm like a fat lion on the Serengeti, right? These gazelles are running by and I'm like, oh, I'm so fat. So it's like, it's going to have to be a really amazing gazelle for me to be like, okay, I'll get up for that one. So I just feel like that's where you got to be.
All right. Well, there's the tagline for our show, folks.
And another t-shirt. We're going to make a lot of money off t-shirts from Barbara.
Barbara's going to have to get a nice royalty check on that one.
You might get a kick out of this. And these guys have heard this story before, but I was at a writers conference in 1995. Actually, that's when I met David Morrell. And I was sitting at a table during a group discussion, and they were talking about rejection letters. And this one guy had written a science fiction book, and he had his own language with glossary at the back and everything. I mean, the whole thing wasn't his language, but there were certain terms. And the agent rejected him and wrote a lot of it in the language that he invented.
It took 20 times.
The agent was in such a bad mood that day that they took the time to learn his language and tell him why they were rejecting it.
I mean, I think, the biggest question I get is someone is like, I just didn't love it enough. And people are like, what does that mean? But it's true. Like, I don't want to just sell your book. I want to hang out with you for the next 30 years and facilitate what you're doing. And so, and I equate it to, I've never had a nanny, but like if I was interviewing nannies and someone was like, I really would like this paycheck, I think I could do a good job. Or the nanny was like, is it me or are your children geniuses? Like I want the nanny, my kids are geniuses, and that's what I want to be for you. I want to be that person that's, your teammate and a facilitator and somebody who's doing it again with total passion. Maybe that's not how some agents do it. Maybe it's a spreadsheet, numbers, and filling the quotas. But I mean, I can represent a middle grade. I can sign a middle grade, tomorrow. I can sign John Dixon tomorrow, and then I can sign, D. Watkins the next week. I can do whatever I want as long as it fish hooks me in, and away we go.
Yeah.
Well, that's actually a really good lead into my next question. You want to hang out with those people and you want to push their career. So you have this stable of clients. They're different personalities. They're in different genres. They're different stages of their careers. And even like in the course of a year, they're in different phases of publication. One's first draft, one's, is it tough to navigate like filling all their needs at the same time so they all feel like they're taken care of? Is that a difficult part of the job to kind of balance your attention with those clients, or is it just naturally fall into the phases of publication?
The second, it naturally falls into the phases of publication. And I might say that's a question for them, because I mean, let's be honest, probably 75% of my job is armchair psychology, you know, sitting down and talking things through and what does this mean? But I also have the unique perspective. I've been doing this for 13 years. I have upwards of 30 books a year coming out. Sure. I have a different view of what this looks like. Well, I have so many more data points than you do. And so many more opportunities for the Venn diagram to overlap to say, this is what this means for you. This is not what this means for the author on your left or the author on your right or the author that gets signed tomorrow. This is what this data means for you. And so there's that kind of process. There's the feelings element in it. Feelings are real. There's what's, you know, everything about where you are at in your journey. You could be on book 7 and call me sobbing. You could be on book 1 and think every day is a blast. It doesn't, your individual path is going to get my individual attention and treatment.
Okay. So let's ask another question from an author standpoint. When you, as an agent, have interest in an author, right, and you're approaching them and saying, "I love it. I want to represent you," without killing off maybe what you would like to divulge, what should that author be asking you?
So we're going to get a little bit of Poelle proprietary, but I also, it's not that proprietary because I wrote a book and put it all in there.
Yeah.
So I'm called, oh my gosh, look at my dirty bookshelves. Don't look.
Okay.
We're looking.
You found one.
Good.
I saw that.
Okay.
There you go.
So
yes.
This is a book called Funny You Should Ask.
Yes.
And where can they get that? Where can they get it?
Where can they buy that?
Like bookstores.
Bookstore, Amazon.
Stores. Yeah. You can get it at, where your books are sold, and bookstores, like I don't know. See how terrible I am as an author? I'm an amazing agent, but as an author, I'm like, I don't know.
I'm not sure I want to represent you, Barbara. You don't have
I know, right? I'm the worst.
If you need an agent,
you got to be your biggest proponent, Barbara.
Come on.
I was the worst agent and the worst client. I said that my agent was like, yeah, she'll do it for that much money and those terms. And my client was like, I can crash a book in 30 days. It's fine. It was, we were the worst relationship ever. So there's a lot of this is outlined in the book, but it's so fun, you guys. I love calling and offering representation. It's so fun because it's so like, hey, guess what? You're right. All those times you spent, you know, gripping the kitchen sink and looking in the mirror late at night and being like, I'm a failure. I know nothing. I barely grasp the language. Like, you did it. You absolutely are right.
She's been spying on me this whole
You deserve a you deserve a seat at the table. And so calling and offering representation is, okay, it's my second favorite call. My first favorite call is to say, hey, I just want to let you know that Putnam is offering on, you know, that's my first.
Yeah.
But when I call to offer you representation, here's what you're going to do. You're going to hear my name. You're going to hear why I'm calling. We're going to have a brief conversation, and I'm going to say I'm offering representation, and then it's going to go white noise. So you're going to say, I'm so excited about this. Thank you so much. And either ask me or I will tell you, you know, I have other manuscripts out there. I have other requests out there. How long of a time do I have for professional courtesy to let others know that? And I'm going to say some really scary stuff, because if I want you, I just want you. I don't want to deal with it.
You're going to do it anyway.
I'm going to get real scary. So that's the proprietary stuff I'm not going to tell you. But you're going to say, you know, for professional courtesy, how long do I have with your offer? Blah, blah, blah. And then, and then I'm going to say, if you have any questions, reach out to me after. And you're going to say, great, I'll be in touch. And then hang up the phone and then immediately panic about, how did you sound? What did you say? I mean, I called one time and offered representation and the author blurted, I love you. And so it was like, it's amazing.
Okay.
And so,
you should.
And so you're going to sit there and panic for a second, but then you're going to realize that you did everything right. You said, thank you so much. Out of professional courtesy, how long do I have with your offer? Okay, great. I will be in touch. And then you're going to sit down and you're going to figure out, okay, who else has the full manuscripts, organize that part of it. But then on the other side of it, you're going to want to come back to me and ask some pointed questions. And you're going to want to ask to talk to 2 of my clients. At least, I mean, 1 will do it, but 2 is better. And you're going to ask those clients 2 questions. What does she excel at? And what could she improve at? And those are going to give you the bookends of what kind of agent I am. and what, and how I work. And so that's kind of the quick encapsulation of what's going to happen. But the good thing is, when I call you to assign you, I'm going to walk you through this again, but totally leaning in my favor, and you're not going to realize it because I'll be manipulating you. But that's what's going to happen at the call time.
Well, and you have to kind of fight against what, Don Bentley said about you too. So, I mean.
That guy.
Are we allowed to repeat any of that?
I don't know. When I watched the episode, it just kept beeping. It would Barbara, and then it would beep for a long time. And I was
like, to cut a lot of stuff.
What's wrong with my computer?
Yeah, it was all connection stuff.
All right. So the author is signed now. But what are the next steps? What does Barbara Poelle offer? Is there more editing? Are you hands-on with the editing? Do you go straight to submission? Does it vary?
I offer you representation.
Yeah.
I'm going to say this is in great shape. I mean, every manuscript needs a little dust up. That probably means I'm going to do a massive overhaul with you, but I'm trying to keep you calm.
Yeah.
But I'm going to say every manuscript needs a little dust up, but I'm not going to share my editorial thoughts with you at that point until we move forward together, because then you run the risk of taking the thoughts that I had, applying them, signing elsewhere with that kind of stuff.
Right.
So there might be some edits. There might be a dust up. There might be you need to take out the mom's backstory and pull all the threads on that. It would really interrupt it in pacing. We'll talk about comp titles. We'll kind of talk about where I see this fitting in the market. And then you just sit there and let me do my thing.
Now, you might have answered this at least partially earlier, but have you ever found an author whose work and writing you just absolutely love, but as you're reading it and you're loving it, you're just like, I don't know that I can sell this. I don't know that it's me to sell. Or do those two things, are they never diametrically opposed?
If I love it, actually have an attachment to it, I'm going to try to sell it. Some of the stuff I've gone out with in the past is legendary at my agency because they're like, this is not a thing, Barbara. And I'm like, I'm going to make it a thing because I love something so much. And then I just cram it. But I think if I have passion for something, I'm gonna go after it. Now, the only times when I'm like, I love this, but I can tell I don't have the thrumming, I will send it to a colleague and I'll be like, do you see this? There's been so many times that I've popped something up to a colleague and they're like, this is a love match for me. And away they go, all boats rise. Yeah. So for me, that's when that happens. That slight feeling of this is good. I read a whole manuscript and I'm like, I think this might be for Victoria, or hey, this is definitely a Maggie. That's kind of where that comes from.
Yeah.
But do you ever look at, if you look back 13 years, you ever look back and go, there's the one that got away? You offered representation and they just went with someone else, or just something happens?
Yeah, it's happened twice. Both times they were young adult novels. Both time it was a 13 agent hog pile. Both time it came down to just me and one other agent. Both times I realized the moment that I was not going to be the agent, and both times have worked out for the best.
Oh, well, that's good.
Mm-hmm.
Now, has there been one that you didn't offer that got away?
Yeah.
Bring up the pain now. Here we go, psychology.
Yeah,
hold on, let me pour a drink.
You just refilled
No, right? I'm like, just got me a second. Can I get a It was more, it was a time management thing where I had requested it, I had it, I finally got to it, and I was like, oh no, I never followed through on this, and reached out, and she was like, I'm signed with someone else, and I saw the sale for that thing a week later, and I was like, it's okay. But I'm telling you, it's so strange. You get who you're supposed to get. You connect with who you're supposed to connect to as an author. I feel like everyone I've ever signed, there's something about their personality that is reflective about mine, or again, something about the conversation they're involved in that maybe I don't really have the language, but I do have a microphone and I can hand it over. And so there's always, everybody gets who they're supposed to get. I truly believe that.
Yeah, and I could see where the personality, opposites can attract maybe at the beginning, but if you don't have some common ground there, the communication is going to be kind of off between the two of them eventually.
Yeah, and I have on 2 occasions in, I would say 13 years, only 2, maybe only 1.5, where I called the author to offer representation and something dissonant got said, and I was like, okay. So then I quickly reverted and I said, well, listen, at this time, this is not what I'm looking for to add to my list, but I wanted to tell you I really enjoyed the book, and I backed it out because I was not interested in that style of thinking moving forward.
Right. Huh. Well, you've been at this a while, obviously highly successful, and we all know you. What have you seen? What changes have you seen in the industry since you started? What have been, and we've heard it from an author standpoint, we've heard it from the reviewer standpoint. So from an agent standpoint, what has changed for you over your career?
Okay, so technical and creative, right?
Yeah.
So
sure.
technical, I mean, when I was a baby, I literally walked into the office with stacks and stacks of paper, and the slush pile was legitimately a pile. And I would take them in my tote bags, and I would go home with the printed queries. And when I signed someone, then I printed, 350-page manuscripts, boxed them up 9 different times, and sent them off to the publisher. So technically, all of a sudden, then we're all on emails, and we're like, pew, 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 firing stuff off at each other. That was a technical change. Yeah. Then we get into ebooks. Then the ebook explosion happened, and everyone, Chicken Little was like, "No, print books are dead."
Yeah.
And, the whole idea of ebooks and how that changed. And then self-publishing came along, which was so exciting. It's like the Wild West. You're staking a claim. You're not finding a traditional path, so you do a self-publishing path. It's so exciting. Again, opening the gates further and further, whether it's technology or a creative idea.
Sure.
And now we're in this amazing time in publishing, and we need to do so much better. But the amplification of marginalized voices, suddenly there's this huge spotlight, such a necessary spotlight on it. And it's such an exciting time to say, we can do so much better. And here we are. So there's both sides of the coin on that. And it's every time there's something shattery in the industry, it's exciting because something better is coming out of it, or you hope. But,
how about the change in, how about the change in the contracts? What are the contracts now looking like in general versus maybe they did 5-10 years ago?
Ooh, okay. I think one of the most interesting things is what's known as the morality clause. Because of the rise of social media and because of our ability to access each other in sound bites, there has been a clause that has been starting to be included in contracts that's basically saying, to paraphrase, if the behavior of the author somehow and I attack it with so much legalese because I'm like, who's deciding your behavior? If you have a different political view than me, am I in breach of this? So I really attack it. I try to get it cut out, or I attack it. But basically, if who you presented yourself to be at moment of signing somehow by great public uproar is then disrupted, they can cancel the contract. This was really specific on nonfiction. You can imagine if someone was a big vegan Instagrammer, and then they're doing all these shots of them at McDonald's, just like, wow, So I'm not, then they'd be like, we have to cancel the book because social media has outed you as not being this vegan Instagram.
Yeah, sure.
But there's also other cases that have happened across the board where behaviors have surfaced and been amplified, and it does absolutely impact the sale of the book. And that's been a new clause. But for me, the language in it gets dangerous, and it gives me a little squiggle.
Who's the decider on that,
Yeah, I have had one book be canceled under this clause where it was it was very rough, but something did happen, and it was something that was proven to have ripples into the exact community that they were selling into.
Got it.
And it was provable that the community was like, not India. And so, that happened, and it in the spirit of the clause, in the mathematics of the clause, the audience was turning away.
Interesting. Okay.
Well, we talked about this a little bit, or you talked about it a little bit, but in addition to being a super mega agent extraordinaire,
I
think it's how
his pitch is coming next week, by the way.
I think that's how Don referred to you. But you wrote a book called Funny You Should Ask, and we discussed it a little bit. But my question is, how did the process of publishing that book make you a better agent when you're on the other side of the table?
Yeah. So, my big thing is like, I can say ass, right? I can say ass.
Yeah, at least.
I'm like,
please.
My big thing is like ass and chair, get the work done. And then in the meantime, so my husband is an actor, and he was out of town for 3 months in California well, I was crashing a book, being a single mom, running an empire and doing it. And I was like, I can do this. And so it took a lot of kind of my own advice, but also the stories that I have heard from the people telling the stories of how they worked it in. Somebody is like, I set my alarm at 5:30 and I do my hour and a half before the kids get up. And that's my only time to write. Someone else said, I bartered with another parent. Will you take my children for 2 hours? I will take your children for 2 hours every other day. Like, I kind of used a conglomerate of all that and how to put it together, because I really did have to crash this. But I had so much experience on, the articles themselves. There were so many of them that had already published the column in Writer's Digest. But I also just had such a clear understanding that I was doing this from a place of joy. So I never really got bogged down. And that was one thing that, I feel like there is those moments for my authors where they have the pure joy. And I was able to kind of sit in that a little bit. But the biggest thing I learned is that they're geniuses. I mean, I wrote a nonfiction book based on 6 years of columns I did. I could do that, drunk and upside down. They are like inventing and creating and pulling from their own life experience and writing insanely beautiful works of nonfiction, delightful, delicious middle grades. And I just am in awe of these people, in awe. And it's my privilege to be a part of their, facilitating their career. Just want to grease them all down like otters and shove them in. It's just like so
T-shirt number 4, people.
It's so just my privilege to get them out there and to, time travel and tell their stories.
That's
grease
awesome.
them like otters, man.
Grease them like otters.
I don't even know what that means.
That's my new tagline, people.
Oh, otters, anyway, I don't have to explain myself.
It's a great visual. I love it.
Still thinking about it.
Yeah.
What's one? So we talked about things that aspiring authors should do when they want to get your attention. What's the one thing that they should never do that just pisses you off and just ship, throw away?
Okay, aspiring authors. There's a couple of shades of one thing, which is you don't need to bring your arrogance to the table. Just do a query letter. That sometimes frustrates me. If I get a query that I did get that said, I read Nick Petrie's novels, but I think you and I will both agree I can do better. And I was like, delete. Because
we love
you can't.
No, you can't, by the way. Nick's one of the best writers in the world.
I know you can't. So there's a lot of that, and I know where that comes from, that place of posturing. I know that comes from fear. For me, I think one of the biggest things anyone can do at any part of this process is looking at someone else's paper. Why come he got, or why did she get, or I heard they got, that kind of stuff. To me, it's like, keep your eyes on your paper. Again, it's about the data set and about your journey, your genre, your characters, the market you're selling into. Like, we're going to do the best we can to grease your otter and shove it down the laundry chute. But like, we have to it's your otter wearing your number. That's it. You get one otter and it's yours. So I extended that metaphor kind of in a weird way, but we're with me, right?
Yeah, I'm still there.
And it's eyes on your paper, right? Eyes on your paper. And I think that's the biggest mistake. And it's one of my more frustrating things where I'm kind of guiding you back on your path. It's important to see what other people are doing for publicity or marketing, or seeing where or how they've done this, or how did they do that flashback and then we didn't realize it was present day. Like, that's all important. But to be like, you have a buffet in front of you and you want that Happy Meal going by, I'm going to snap you back onto your path,
Yeah, sure.
Were you a big fan of Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas as a child? I'm just curious.
It's awesome.
I was waiting for one of you guys to bring that up.
I couldn't find the right spot. Sean stole it.
No, sometimes I get stuck on image, and I just that's the other thing about me with comedy too. If I can tell a joke in 4 different ways when one would suffice, you're going to hear 6 different ways. Like, I cannot stop.
Let's beat it
I'm
to
like
death,
the
man.
turducken of joke telling.
Love it.
Greased otters is funny stuff. Hey, and this conversation's been had 1,000 times, but for some of our maybe people who are newer and haven't really been in the industry all that long, most of those people will say that the submission process takes longer than querying for an agent. So can you describe why that is and what is actually taking place that's creating kind of that longer time span?
I have sold books in 8 hours. I have sold books in 18 months, and I have gone out with books to 27 to 30 imprints that never sold. I wish I could tell you. I wish. It's Plinko, right?
Yeah.
It's a chip you can put in the same spot every time. So
different result.
Yeah.
You have a gift.
I wish I had that answer.
You have a gift for metaphors that explain exactly.
Yeah.
My brain goes exactly.
That Plinko's a tremendous metaphor for it.
Yeah. A couple more martinis. A couple more martinis and they'll get bluer. Also, I've been on a couple of game shows. A couple more martinis and I'll tell you about those.
And which ones?
No. You have to tell us now.
A when one?
No, that's bonus material question.
Bonus material.
Yeah.
Save that for the bonus content. Subscribe, people.
Save that one.
This actually deals with Plinko. Most industries have something called an industry standard. But publishing really doesn't in a lot of ways. And the deals are so wide ranging. But as an agent, how do you learn that art and what's reasonable and know, you know what, this is reasonable and this person's trying to steal my client. I mean, with the deal so crazy in difference, how do you figure that out?
Yeah, I will tell you this right now. This is my truth. Every single book I sign, I'm like, this is worth $1 million. I'm not kidding. That's not hyperbolic. I'm like, this person's a genius. So for me, once you get out there, once you start shopping, you start having these conversations, it kind of evolves from those conversations. I have sold just this year. I mean, even during the shutdown of quarantine, just hustling for the lack of, feeling helpless and lack of anything to do, just doubling down at work. And I've sold things for, high 6 figures, and I've sold things for 4 figures. And I work just as hard on those 4-figure books and their contracts as I do the 6-figure books. To me, it's the same thing. I signed you for a reason. I think you're worth $1 million, and we'll get there someday. But today it's a $7,500 book.
Yeah. And with that $7,500, we're going to go finish up the traditional portion, if we want to call it that, of this interview. We're going to raise a glass because we're going right into the lightning round.
Oh, take a big drink, folks. Here we go.
Which I'm still trying to get Bullet Bourbon to sponsor so we can call it the Bullet Round. I think it makes a lot of sense.
Ooh,
nice.
Happy.
Tenure, people.
We'll be happy to drink Bullet Bourbon. Your show. I
had a flight with Pappy's. I can't even, was it $25?
What? Who paid for that?
You guys, a 2-ounce pour was, I don't even want to tell you how much it was.
Yeah,
it was transcendent.
Was it really?
That's on my bucket
list.
That's my bucket list for
what year?
For the, I don't know.
Was it 25? It was 25 or 21.
Oh my God. Was that $1,000 a shot?
Yeah.
You know what? It tasted the way I imagine Lee Child's neck smells.
Book number 5, people.
By the way, that was the longest segue.
His horse is stable right now, too.
All right.
Okay.
So
lightning round's gonna be good now, folks.
Oh my gosh! Did we already have a drink? Did we? I don't even know. Let's have another one.
We're doing it again.
Yeah, that's a good one.
All right, we're gonna ask. Each of us are gonna ask 3 questions each. I'm gonna start first.
You okay?
Maybe
this one's apropos because it has booze in it. What sport would be the funniest to add a mandatory amount of alcohol to?
What's the Canadian scrubby one?
Curling.
Curling.
I thought that was already mandatory.
Yeah, but they're on the ice and they're like,
And then they fall and smash their face.
Yeah.
Pretty
but I do think that the translation is called scrubby. It's called scrubby here.
Okay. We're going to get a picture of curling and we're going to put scrubby underneath it. And we're going to start selling those on our website, people. So make sure you check that out next week.
All right. I've lived in New York City. You live in New York City. It's a big city with lots of people walking around. What would be the creepiest thing you could say while passing a stranger on the street?
It doesn't matter what you say. It matters that you either sing it very high or whisper it very quiet.
Oh, it's how you do it.
Mm-hmm.
I love the way your neck smells.
That was a really quick answer. She's given this a lot of thought.
Yeah, that must be in like in a notebook somewhere. This would be really creepy.
It's in her next book.
It's just, this is how it works, you guys. You put a quarter in this, and now you can't turn it off.
Man, now I know why
Feed
you said
it.
that.
Put another one in. Here it comes.
Perfect.
Hate mail. Authors get them. The crew reviews never gets them.
Ever?
But do agents get them?
Because we don't
and
give
if
out
so,
our
what's
mail.
the craziest one you've received?
Yeah.
Oh, well, it's gonna get a little dark, but I get hate mail, like saying stuff. But I sometimes get gentlemen who may be interested in me in other ways than as their agent, and sometimes they can get pretty specific, and those go in their own secret file in case I ever end up in a suitcase in the Hudson.
Jeez, is it that bad?
Wow.
I would guess. I would guess.
I mean, it's not often, but hey, yeah, it happens. Welcome
Do you
to-
turn around and be like, "That's what should have been in your book, asshole"?
Oh, right?
No,
I'm
that's a good
yeah,
premise.
that's haunting. That's actually haunting. You should write that instead. It's rare, but there's its own file just in
Wow,
case.
that's creepy.
Oh,
I'm in a
man.
suitcase.
God.
Yep.
Ugh. I gotta take a shower now. All right. So it's my turn. Oh, exciting.
Wait, let me just say, remember, ladies aren't sending me those letters. Let's just
Yeah.
make that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I
It's
never
dudes.
imagined that.
Yeah.
It's guys.
Yeah.
Dudes
Guys
are
are the
weird.
worst. All right, go.
Maybe you know what?
Definitely
though?
not an otter.
Before he goes, maybe you should do an endorsement deal for yourself. Like, if I ever end up in the bottom of the Hudson in a suitcase, make it be to me.
To me,
Terrible.
Samsonite.
I wonder if we should incorporate that into the Bullet bourbon. Something.
Oh my gosh, this is.
Sorry, Bullet. Didn't mean to do that. All right.
Michael?
Question number 1. What brand of shot collar did you issue Don Bentley for his Without Sanction book tour?
Yeah, it wasn't as much as a collar. It was several pressure points, and it was a dial. It was a dial. So,
Okay.
sometimes he just needs a little tap. Sometimes he needs the full voltage.
Okay.
Can we get that apparatus? Just walk
I
like,
mean,
zzz.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe. We'll
You know
talk
he
after.
wears it like, when he doesn't have to. All right. Number 2. Is laughter really the best medicine? Because I can't find that in any of my medical books.
I think laughter is really important, but after a good solid night at Thriller Fest, I think sticking with ibuprofen is best.
A little antibiotics might go a long way, people. Okay, bring that with you too. All right, number 3. As a comic from LA, this should be easy for you to finish. Here we go. Finish this sentence. There once was a man from Nantucket.
I'm not doing this.
See, I thought you were going to go with turducket.
I could have.
boy.
See it. Oh, don't let me forget. This is happening on a podcast. See, afterwards, we'll play that game afterwards.
Okay.
Next Thriller Fest, people, hang out with us.
Yes, we'll definitely play that at Thriller Fest. you
Yes,
guys.
we will.
Definitely.
So I'm up, and I have a comedian question too, but it's actually a legitimate question. As a comedian, what was the worst reception you ever got for either a joke or a routine?
Dead silence is always the worst reception.
Ooh,
Just
great.
dead silence. And I will say this: I believe everyone should do 2 things in their life. I believe everyone should wait tables and do 2 minutes of stand-up. I
I
think
agree.
those are very foundational things for any career. And I think that being a stand-up and falling on my face and trying to get the room back has been very helpful as an agent. I can tell when the conversation's moving, when it's time to get the room back on the same page together. So I do think there's a lot of skill set that goes into comedy. And who doesn't like to laugh, right? Like, who doesn't like to have a good time at work? So
Yeah.
I know
There's
some
that.
people.
He works with a whole list of people.
Yeah.
Federal government.
All right. Second question. Tougher in negotiations, book publishers or your children?
my children.
Too smart. Just too smart.
I like how you put that.
You're sure.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
And my final question, and your final question, is what sort of gift is best for a writer trying to woo an agent to represent them? And related, what is your shoe size?
See, the best gift you can give me is doing the work. And 7.5, I prefer wedges.
Wedges, okay.
Okay, write that down,
folks.
Chris. Write that down.
Yeah.
Don't put her in a suitcase. Send her shoes.
Oh man.
Folks, Barbara, that is the end of the interview. You have been a spectacular guest.
Yes, you have.
Wit, your humor, just your background, everything. We thank you for coming on the show. We thank you for telling us all these great things we could put on T-shirts.
You guys, I had a blast. Thank you.
We're going to raise a drink to you.
Thank you. Nastrovia.
Da. 3, 2.
Boys, we had a fantastic interview. Barbara Poelle, literary agent extraordinaire, on the show. Spicy. Talked a whole lot about greased otters. Go figure. We're going to put some stuff on T-shirts. Pretty funny. She's a blast. Her authors, she does some amazing things and is able to get some fantastic authors signed up. She was a great guest. So let's raise a glass to her.
I like that idea. Ooh, and I'm glowing.
You are Barbara Poelle. Thank you so much.
Barbara, to you. Cheers. Look at it.
It's you.
This
boys.
is the outro for Barbara Poelle.
It is? Oh my gosh.
And this is Chris Albanese.
Outro like no otter.
Like no otter. He's all greased up and he's ready to go. Now he's pretending like he's studying something.
You guys are ready?
In 3, 2.
I'm going to finish this article. Go ahead.
Yeah.
What?
Go,
Hey.
damn it. Go.